My best friend invited me out for drinks, saying there would be 2 handsome guys. I was thrilled. Tossing on a mini skirt and a low-cut top, I hailed a cab and headed out. But when I got there, one of them was my brother. The other was hers. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My first reaction was to raise my handbag and cover my chest. The bold confidence I had leaving the house, determined to charm a handsome stranger, instantly vanished. Shrinking my shoulders, I glared at Joy while forcing an awkward smile. Haha, what a coincidence, Patrick. You're here too? When did you get back to the country? They had booked a table for 4. My brother, Omar, who had long been infatuated with Joy, of course, abandoned all principles and his own sister to sit next to her. The only seat left was beside Patrick. And it was against the wall. He didn't move to let me in, so I had no choice but to stand stiffly beside him. Patrick was sterilizing a pair of chopsticks and a bowl, moving slowly and meticulously, agonizingly so. I've always been the impatient type. But in front of him, I didn't dare act out. I held my breath and waited quietly. No coincidence, he said coldly, lips barely moving. I told Joy to invite you. I've been afraid of Patrick since I was a kid. As Joy's best friend, I'd heard no shortage of his horror stories. Strict, uptight, absolutely no fun, I'd heard it all so much, my ears could recite it on their own. At first, I thought Joy was exaggerating. Her brother was the same age as mine, just 2 years older than us. My brother still acted like a fool. How could hers be this ancient soul she described? Besides, Patrick had a stunning face and was famously popular at school. That was, until the day I visited her house. Patrick, stone-faced, asked Joy if she'd finished her homework. Then he turned to me and asked the same. Heaven help me, what did my homework have to do with him? But his demeanor, his posture, everything about him, reminded me so much of my scariest teacher that I couldn't help but lower my voice and answer like an obedient child. That day, Barbie dolls and video games were replaced by unfinished assignments. The junk food Joy and I had stashed in advance was tossed, replaced with neatly washed fresh fruit. Patrick was truly a madman who stood alone in a world of children. When I was 15, my mom asked Patrick to tutor me. He was terrifyingly responsible. In just 6 months, he pulled me from average standing to the top high school in the district. The problem was, he was too responsible. Daydreaming? Not allowed. Breaks? Also no. Excuses? Absolutely not. Even slouching while writing earned me a tap from a plastic ruler to sit up straight. I was trying to maintain a relationship back then. I couldn't even find time to text my crush. We hadn't even held hands before we broke up. Already scared of him, by the end of those 6 months I was both angry and resentful. But aside from the occasional grumbling muttered under my breath, I never dared say a thing. Patrick rarely smiled. With his cold face and sharp eyes, he stood like a gleaming silver blade. The kind that could stop a crying child at midnight. Whenever I saw him, I'd instinctively take the long way around. That dinner was torture. Patrick was impeccably well-mannered, he didn't speak while eating, didn't talk before bed. Sitting at the same table with him, no one dared open their mouth, except for Omar, my brother, the human version of a boiled frog. Of the 4 of us, Patrick looked perfectly at ease. Omar was too thick-skinned to care. Joy was already used to him. Only I could feel the strange tension in the air, itching all over as I quietly suffered. I didn't dare look up. I barely touched the dishes and just kept poking at the rice in my bowl. From the corner of my eye, I saw Patrick turn to the waiter and ask for a new pair of chopsticks. But the ones in his hand were perfectly clean. Still, I wasn't about to question him. I quickly shifted my gaze, pretending I hadn't seen anything. The next moment, those brand new chopsticks, holding a single shrimp, were extended in front of me. Patrick held them with textbook perfect technique, a small dish placed underneath in case it fell. I didn't know whether to take it or not. I just stared at the shrimp, frozen, bowl in hand. What was this? He still didn't say a word. Just looked at the shrimp, then at me. Was he silently criticizing my slow speed, my lack of social awareness? I hurriedly tilted my bowl toward him with both hands. Omar, for once, said something that pleased me. Hey, Patrick, Jennifer knows how to eat by herself. Eat your own food. No need to serve her. I nodded furiously in my mind. After all these years, my brother finally grew some emotional intelligence. But Patrick, who had ignored everything Omar said earlier, suddenly glanced at him coldly. Shut up. Who told you to talk while eating? Bad habit, Omar muttered, but obediently shut his mouth. Patrick. Is there anyone who can control this man? After dinner, Patrick slowly dabbed his mouth with a napkin. He folded it neatly, creasing it as if it were origami. It's been a year, he said, looking at me. Your taste has changed? I blinked. What? I glanced at the dishes in front of me and realized the table was filled with all my favorite foods. Eating with Patrick was so nerve-wracking, I hadn't even noticed. She's probably trying to lose weight. That girl's always been obsessed with looking good, Omar chimed in again. After tonight, I had to admit, he was growing on me. I might even stop ratting him out to our parents. I thought the conversation would end there with a laugh. But Patrick slowly added 2 words, I know. Know what? Oh. Know that I care about appearances. Wait. Know what exactly? He didn't seem fazed by our surprise. She's already thin. Eating too little can cause low blood sugar. Still such a control freak, even after a year abroad. I gave in and nodded obediently. I'll listen to you, Patrick. I'll eat 3 big bowls a meal from now on. Patrick paused. Eating too much is also bad. Can he not be funny for once? What are you guys doing after this? He asked. Judging from the way Jennifer's dressed, I'd say she's planning to go out for drinks. I mean, let's be real. I had dressed to impress. Joy and Omar both jumped. Wait, you're not planning to come, are you? Patrick, you're actually thinking of drinking? Patrick cast them a calm glance, unfazed. I just want to have a look. Is that not allowed? If having dinner with Patrick was a mistake, then going to a bar with him was a full-blown disaster. Even though he politely said, don't mind me, you guys go ahead and have fun, no one could actually relax with him sitting there. Especially not when that someone was wearing a suit in a bar and sipping on a 58 yuan glass of lemon water. Every gaze in the room zeroed in on us like we were an exhibit. It was unbearable. Just painfully awkward. I'd never realized bars could be this loud, or that the drinks could taste this bad. Apparently, Joy and Omar felt the same. They mumbled something about needing to check out some thing somewhere, I didn't catch the details. Before I could even say I'd join, the 2 of them vanished like ghosts. It hit me too late. Oh. They didn't want me to hear it clearly. And just like that, it was me and Patrick. Staring at each other. Trapped in this silence. In desperation, I blurted, is the lemon water any good? Horrible. Sour. I don't like lemon water. Then why did you order it? I'm driving. Can't drink. Then why come to a bar at all? I seriously wondered if this man could function like a normal human being. Patrick looked at me but didn't reply. After a long pause, he mimicked me, searching for something, anything, to say. And the colorful thing you're drinking, is it good? I nearly choked on the sip in my mouth. Joy and Omar never returned. Patrick must have been fed up with the atmosphere too. At last, he opened his mouth again. Let's go. They're not coming back. I'll drive you home. To be honest, anyone offering to get me out of there was my hero at that moment. I didn't care who took me home. I regretted it almost immediately. Letting Patrick take me home felt like stepping from one bizarre space into another. The only difference was now I was stuck with him in a weirdly silent car instead of a weirdly silent bar. At least the bar had music and chatter in the background. But Patrick? He didn't even turn on the radio. I sat there, awkwardly picking at my seatbelt buckle. I heard you're doing a double major. Of course. I rolled my eyes internally. One-on-one conversation with this guy always circled back to school. Not as impressive as you, Patrick, I muttered dismissively. Silence fell again. After a while, Patrick tossed out another question. And dating? What was he trying to get at? I answered with a bit of bite, if I had a boyfriend, would I have let Joy lure me out with the promise of hot guys and shown up dressed like this? You like handsome ones. I stiffened a little. Well, I'm not that shallow. Got it. Got what? What did he get this time? Joy probably sensed I was ready to explode, because she vanished for days. When she finally resurfaced, it was through a very long call where she vented about her brother. My brother's having a midlife crisis or something. Total green cucumber energy. Used to wear the same 3 outfits, day in and day out. Never cared what he looked like. Which was true. Patrick had always stuck to black, white, and gray, same brand, same styles, no variation, for years. As for the cucumber metaphor? I imagined Patrick striking dramatic poses in front of a mirror and shuddered. But Joy's voice was laced with genuine disbelief, not exaggeration. Yesterday he came home with a pile of new clothes. Tried each one on and kept asking me if he looked handsome. She flailed as she spoke, completely unable to express her horror. It's ridiculous. He's not young anymore. Why is he acting like some teenage heartthrob? Was this really the same Patrick? And strangely, the first thing that popped into my mind was what he'd said in the car, you like handsome ones. Something about all this was off. But luckily, Patrick was a busy man with endless work and responsibilities. He didn't have time to get involved in the daily lives of nobodies like Joy and me. All my worries about being dragged into his orbit after he returned to the country quickly faded. After a few days of anxious silence, I relaxed completely. I messaged Joy, hey bestie, the riverside breeze is soft, the grass is lush, how about a little camping trip? She replied, that poetic crap only works in February. What month do you think it is now? Right. I hadn't messaged her first in a while. Of course she was annoyed. I scrambled to appease her, don't be mad, babe. It's not that I'm heartless, it's just that your brother is too much to deal with. I've packed all your favorite snacks. Just waiting for you now. Fine. I'll forgive you this once. I arrived at the campsite earlier than Joy. Since it was a weekday, the place was quiet, just the sounds of wind rustling the grass and water flowing gently by. The sunlight shimmered off the river, and the peace of it all lifted my mood immediately. I thought about Patrick, too busy to even see Uncle and Auntie lately, and hummed a tune to myself. That was, until 2 minutes later. My humming stopped cold. I stared in disbelief as Joy walked up, with Patrick and Omar trailing behind her. And that was the exact moment I understood what "struck by lightning" truly meant. Omar I could tolerate, barely. He was always clinging to my best friend like some loyal puppy. But Patrick? Dressed like a trendy college boy, hairstyled like he'd stepped out of a fashion shoot? What was he even doing here? No wonder Joy had described him as a cucumber trying to look young. He was probably crushing on some campus girl. And that outfit, who was it for? The trees? The grass? The river? Still. I sneakily glanced Patrick up and down before he got too close. Broad shoulders. Narrow waist. Long legs. Sharp, striking face. Okay, fine. Objectively speaking, he was stupidly good-looking. If only his personality were more normal, he could easily charm any college girl he wanted. In fact, he wouldn't even need to chase them. They'd probably line up around the block. Joy jogged up to me with a cheeky grin. Babe, they insisted on coming. You're not mad, right? This time, she was the one sucking up to me. Thankfully, Omar and Patrick had at least brought extra food and drinks, and even an extra tent. Clearly, they came prepared. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I wanted to dropkick them both into the bushes. Don't they have friends of their own? Other plans? Other people to annoy? Why must they crash our outing? Omar was glued to Joy's side. If she turned left, he didn't dare go right. If she went to the bathroom, he stood outside the door like a guard dog. The sight of it made my skin crawl. I fumed as I assembled the camping tables and chairs, vowing to make Omar pay once we got home. Anyone who steals my best friend deserves no mercy. I stood up, flustered, and bumped into someone. Patrick was right behind me, his hand half raised, as if he'd been about to catch me. He was probably dragged here by Omar, and now his good buddy had stolen my bestie, leaving the two of us as unwanted leftovers. With no better option, I pointed to a still unassembled table nearby, silently assigning Patrick something to do. While Omar and Joy giggled and whispered like a couple, Patrick and I worked in complete silence, like two soulless machines building furniture in the wilderness. Then, suddenly, a voice called from behind me. Jennifer. My pants are stuck. Patrick turned his head, deliberately avoiding eye contact. His ears were burning red. He'd gone full trendy boy mode and wore a pair of pants with decorative chains. Unfortunately, the chain had gotten caught in the connecting joints of the folding table. Now it wouldn't budge. Trapped beside the camp table, Patrick looked genuinely lost for once. The scene was so ridiculous I had to fight to keep the corners of my lips from curling. God help me, I could not laugh in front of him. We were so close. I crouched down to help untangle the chain. That close, I could smell his cologne. A warm, woody scent. Comforting. Patrick, this dramatic man, was even wearing cologne now. He used to just smell like clean laundry. I shifted awkwardly, but we were still so close that every breath I took was filled with the scent of him, wrapping around me like an invisible hug. It was weird. And kind of irritating. I frowned, for once snapping at Patrick without my usual restraint. Why'd you even wear these pants? Patrick lowered his head, and his chin brushed the top of mine. Don't they look good? I looked up. He still had that composed, unreadable face. But somehow, the question coming out of his mouth was even weirder the second time. Don't they look good, Jennifer? Honestly, they did look good. With a face like Patrick's, what doesn't look good? But I didn't know why. I just couldn't say a single word back. My throat tightened. What was wrong with me? Patrick was acting strange lately, and now I was acting possessed too? Just then, my phone rang, rescue at last. I scrambled away from the weird vibe, finally able to breathe. Though, I couldn't help feeling strangely reluctant, too. Who are you camping with? I glanced at the caller ID, my beloved roommate, my lifesaver. With my brother. And my best friend. I paused. And just like that, the person on my left cast me a side glance. Patrick's hands, which had been moving methodically, suddenly paused, as if he were waiting for me to finish. Oh. And my best friend's brother. I don't know why, but I could feel his mood shift instantly. Omar had brought an entire crate of alcohol. Joy, who had both a weak tolerance and terrible drinking habits, insisted on drinking anyway. After a few cups, she was already glassy-eyed and wobbling. She suddenly stood up, knocking over her chair in the process. "You," she shouted, pointing straight at me. "Me?" I asked, half amused, pointing at myself. Before I could even tease her for acting like a drunk mess, her finger slid sideways. "And you," she declared, pointing directly at Patrick. Patrick didn't say a word. He just calmly watched his sister lose her mind. "You too. Get up." What the hell? I stood hesitantly, thinking surely Patrick wouldn't actually listen to her. I was just about to try calming Joy down when a tall figure stood beside me, casting a shadow over half my body. Right. He was her brother, after all. Of course he'd indulge her. "Stand over here. Together." Apparently dissatisfied with how slowly we moved, Joy staggered over and physically dragged us to an open patch of ground. We stood side by side. So close that when I moved, my hand would accidentally brush against Patrick's. Joy squinted, looking back and forth between us. Then, clapping her hands together, she beamed. "You guys look great together. Can you please start dating?" This lunatic, I wanted nothing more than to faint on the spot. Patrick, who should have scolded Joy for being ridiculous, said nothing. I turned and saw, was that, a smile at the corner of his mouth? What the hell? Was this really Patrick? Mr. Coldface No Humor Patrick? Why wasn't he stopping Joy? And yet, that smile really was handsome. I got so dazed staring at it that I didn't even register what was happening until I felt a sudden shove on my shoulder. Joy had pushed me. Hard. But I didn't fall to the ground. I fell into Patrick's arms. He looked equally startled by the sudden move. His hands hovered for a moment, then fell awkwardly to his sides, just letting me stay there, buried against his chest. "Damn you, Joy," eyes shut, my whole body stiff, I wished I could just die on the spot and be done with it. Joy clapped enthusiastically at the sight, clearly thrilled. Omar finally couldn't take it anymore and got up to drag her away. Once they were gone, the noisy campsite fell silent again. All I could hear was the crackling of the firewood, and the pounding of my heart. Patrick didn't step back. Even after I pulled myself together and awkwardly straightened up, he stayed in the same spot. I forced myself to look up, only to be met with his unwavering gaze, so intense I had to drop my head again. He lifted his hand. 2 fingers brushed gently across my cheek. His voice dropped low, every syllable precise and quiet. "Jennifer, your face is really red." Seriously? Did he have to point that out? Couldn't he tell I already knew how hot it felt? Has this man no emotional intelligence? And besides, I'd had a bit to drink, maybe it was just the alcohol talking. As I muttered internally, Patrick added with a faint chuckle in his voice, "It's hot." I wanted to dive into the river beside us and drown from secondhand embarrassment. "Why is your face red?" "It's too hot," I mumbled. "I overheat easily." "Don't believe me, achoo." I sneezed right on cue. "I'm just your best friend's older brother. Why are you blushing?" I buried my head like an ostrich, refusing to look at him. But he wouldn't let it go. He leaned forward until we were eye to eye, refusing to let me dodge his gaze. "Jennifer," he said softly, "I've never treated you badly. Why are you so afraid of me?" Truth was, Patrick could be gentle too. When I was 15, during a particularly stressful time preparing for entrance exams, I was dumped, suddenly, cruelly, by my first boyfriend. Heartbroken, I ignored everything, even Patrick. During our tutoring session, I collapsed over the desk and just cried. The same Patrick who, according to Joy, was immune to tears, suddenly seemed at a loss. He raised his hand, then put it down, hesitated again, and finally rested it gently on my back, patting me slowly in a clumsy, comforting rhythm. "Don't cry," he said. His tone was still stiff, which oddly made me want to laugh. "We won't study today. I'll take you out. So don't cry, okay?" He wasn't giving a command this time. He was asking. It was the softest I'd ever heard him. With tears in my eyes, I could only nod dumbly. I didn't know how to ride a bike. And Patrick's bicycle only had 1 seat. So he sat me on the saddle and walked alongside, pushing the handlebars. The summer night breeze dried my tears, leaving behind only a trace of coolness. Amid the sound of cicadas, Patrick called out softly, "Jennifer. Life is kind of like riding the bus. People get on, and people get off." He scratched his nose, suddenly looking a little guilty. "I'm not trying to sound all philosophical or anything. I just want you to know, if someone wasn't that important, maybe they're not worth being so sad over." He looked awkward, so different from the Patrick I thought I knew. For a brief moment, I wanted to ask him something. What about him? Would he ever get off the bus? The rest faded into a blur with time. All I remember from that failed first love is waking up the next morning, pulling open my curtains, and seeing Patrick's bicycle parked quietly beside the wall outside Joy's house, directly facing my window. He had added a back seat to it. The curved metal glinted in the sunlight. So bright. So very bright. I used to be scared of Patrick. Now, I was terrified. He dressed strange. Spoke strange. Did strange things. When he looked at me, there was something unreadable in his eyes. A depth I couldn't interpret, an intensity that gave me goosebumps. This Patrick, after just a year abroad, had turned into someone completely impossible to deal with. He used to be all aloof scholar energy, like he only ever read Confucian classics and drank plain water. Now? Everything he said, everything he did, felt deliberate. His presence frustrated me so much I couldn't focus on school or even enjoy games. All I could do was sit and sigh, chin in hand. Joy must have noticed the dip in my mood during our call, because she suddenly got excited and whispered like she had a juicy secret, "Jenny, I have something to tell you." I sounded completely uninterested. What? I think my brother's in love. What? My brain completely short-circuited. It's true, she insisted, lowering her voice like Patrick might hear her. I don't know who he's texting lately, but the way he smiles at his phone is so creepy. And just as she finished saying that, a message popped up on my screen. It was from Patrick. He wanted me to teach him how to swim. I tutored you for 6 months. You being my swim coach, that's fair exchange, right? What a petty, calculating man. He monopolized my free time back then, and now he wanted to do it again. Is there any role he doesn't want to play? I was just about to reject him flatly when he sent another message. I already asked Auntie. She agreed for you. The heavens are truly trying to kill me. Patrick, this type who gets along perfectly with every adult, who can charm anyone's mom, can he please get out of my life? I started to suspect he was messing with me on purpose. Watching him warm up by the pool, I couldn't bring myself to trust him. Omar was on the school swim team. You could toss him into the ocean and he'd make it back without a problem. He was way better than me. Patrick spent every day with him, so why didn't he ask him to teach him? Why me? I glared at his back, burning with resentment. But the idea of being Patrick's teacher, of scolding him like he used to scold me when I was too slow, it kind of made me feel better. Except, I never got the chance. Patrick learned terrifyingly fast. It took me several lessons just to figure out how to kick properly. He got it in one. By the second session, he was already combining arm strokes like a natural. I've always been competitive. Always needed to be first. That part of me hasn't changed. So when I saw Patrick, the supposed beginner who almost drowned last time, suddenly stop and look back at me as if waiting, I snapped. How could he be faster than me? I held my breath and kicked with everything I had, racing to pass him. And was promptly pulled to a stop. He grabbed me by the waist and lifted me right out of the water. It was quick, his hand reached, held, and let go again in seconds. But I could feel it. The way his touch lingered. At first, I thought it was a challenge. A tease. So I followed him, ready to demand an explanation. Only to realize, oh, it wasn't teasing. It was flirting. I stood there, unsure what to do. Jennifer, you really are so stupid, he said. Same tone. Same insult. Just like back when I was 15. Even now, as his swim coach, I still had to be called dumb? I huffed, I am teaching you pretty well, aren't I? I mean, look how fast you're swimming. Patrick looked slightly exasperated. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He didn't answer. Just reached down and took my hand from the water. I instinctively tried to pull back, but he held it firmly. Patrick lowered his head, completely focused as he began gently kneading my fingers. His hands were colder than mine, moving from my pinky to my thumb, then back again. Like little sparks, the pressure of his fingertips made my scalp tingle. My heart itched. My brain itched. What kind of spell was he trying to cast now? I think I'm at least a little better looking than most guys, right? Excuse me? Did he just praise himself? You said you liked handsome men. So, could you maybe consider me? My brain stopped working. Honestly, Patrick had been so strange lately, he probably had eaten my brain. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Opened. Closed. Nothing came out. It took me forever to finally choke out a line. Is this some new kind of prank? Patrick, for once, didn't lose patience. I thought I was being really obvious, he said softly. But Jennifer, if I don't spell it out, you'll never get it. I've always been slow at solving problems. I take the long way. I never see the answer right away. Turns out, I'm the same when it comes to love. The same Patrick who once helped me cut through academic confusion with a ruler and a straight back was now gently mapping out a new kind of equation for me, this time with emotion. I don't want to be your best friend's brother. Or your tutor. Or your classmate. I like you. I want to be your boyfriend. There was no line simpler. No line easier to understand. So, can I pursue you? This Patrick, I suddenly felt like the water around us had turned to boiling heat. I was going to be cooked alive in this pool. Even as we said goodbye, my mind was still frozen by what Patrick had said. Boyfriend? Pursuing me? Those were words that actually came out of Patrick's mouth? He waved at me, clearly about to say something else. I hesitated, then leaned in closer so he could speak near my ear. His breath brushed the damp strands of hair beside my cheek, warm and close. I have a secret to tell you. He lowered his voice, gravelly, teasing, and tinged with amusement. It didn't just hit my ear. It hit my heart. I actually know how to swim. He wasted my time even though he already knew how? Oh, wait. He did it just to get close to me. Thump, thump, thump thump thump. My half-recovered brain completely short-circuited again. I wanted to dive into the pool and drown. I really couldn't picture Patrick pursuing someone. Scratch that, I couldn't even imagine him liking someone. Romance just felt out of place on him. Like he didn't belong in that world. I told him as much. So, you're saying I've been acting strange since I got back? He smiled faintly. Well, that makes sense. Because I've actually been pursuing you since then. Oh. So I wasn't imagining it. He wasn't possessed. He was peacocking. It had been deliberate from the start. But to be honest, Patrick wasn't very good at pursuing people. He didn't follow any of the trendy tips you'd find online. Instead, he was oddly old-fashioned. We had a lot of meals, just the two of us. Took long walks, again and again down familiar streets. We talked. A lot. And in those quiet, repeated moments, we slowly, steadily got closer. I topped our WeChat step rankings for days. Even Joy started asking if I'd secretly taken a second job behind her back. I told her to shut up, of course, while simultaneously feeling a bit guilty for sneaking around dating her brother. But to be honest, it was kind of sweet. Patrick might not be smooth, but he knew me. At the end of every walk, he'd hand me a neatly wrapped gift box. The ribbons were always tied just right, like he'd practiced. Inside was anything. Hair clips. Necklaces. Things I'd mentioned offhandedly that I wanted to learn. There was no theme or aesthetic, but each one was something I'd actually use. One night, he walked even slower than usual, like he was deliberately dragging time out. Jennifer, he said, I know you're slow to catch on. But even after I told you I wanted to pursue you, you didn't reject me. So doesn't that mean? He paused, lips pressed together. For once, Patrick looked nervous. I still have a chance? I've always been slow, whether it's math or emotions. He's always been sharp, whether it's equations or feelings. I didn't answer. Instead, I sped up and walked ahead. But after just a few steps, I realized. We were already at the end. Time always flew when I was with him. Outside my house, leaning against the wall, was a bike I hadn't seen in years. The same mountain bike he'd added a back seat to when I was 15, but that no one had ever sat on. Now, it had a pink ribbon tied around it. My favorite color. I couldn't believe it still looked brand new, no rust at all. Patrick stood behind me, the always sharp, always composed boy suddenly looking a little awkward. I stepped ahead and tapped the back seat. It's still early. Want to go for another ride? He'd gotten his driver's license long ago and rarely used the old bike anymore. His movements were stiff, clearly out of practice. I hadn't sat on someone else's back seat in years either. But the moment the pedal turned and wind rushed past my face, memories came flooding back. I actually wanted to ask you back then, he said, not looking at me. But it never felt like the right time. When he wasn't staring straight at me, Patrick was still the poised version I remembered. But I wasn't so composed. That early? He'd been waiting that long? I was always either too old, or you were too young. Or we were in different places. I waited a long time, for everything to finally be just right, Jennifer. His shirt puffed slightly in the breeze. Just like those school days, when I'd watch him through the classroom window, distant and brilliant in the sunlight. Patrick had always been good-looking. Even back then. Gently, I reached out and wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. The moment my face touched his back, his whole body tensed. He hadn't even gotten the chance to ask the last question on his mind. But I couldn't wait any longer. Okay. My voice was muffled against his back. Let's date, Patrick. What I didn't expect was how clingy Patrick would be. He clung to me so much I barely had time to reply to Joy's texts. She was so mad she nearly showed up at our school just to check if I'd replaced her with a new bestie. Why don't you just tell her? Patrick said calmly, sniffing my hair like it was a perfectly logical time for advice. Forget the whole dating her brother part. Even just not telling her from the start was already enough to get me beaten to death. I was still young. I didn't want to die early. Patrick clearly resented that I was keeping our relationship a secret. But just like I used to be afraid to speak up, now it was his turn to sulk in silence. Ha! Tables have turned. He pouted and twirled a strand of my hair around his finger. Good. I hope she stops hanging out with you. She's always hogging you. Doesn't even have her own life. I laughed. Patrick, are you actually jealous of your own sister? He answered confidently, so what if I am? You like her more than you like me anyway. Excuse me. Eventually, Joy did corner me. I have a secret to tell you. Another secret? I immediately got a bad feeling. I no longer trusted anything that came out of these siblings' mouths when it started with secret. But Joy didn't care. She yanked me over, looked around cautiously, and whispered in my ear, I think my brother is seriously dating someone. That was a huge secret. Why do you look like you just ate something disgusting? She frowned. It was, probably because I felt like I had. How was I supposed to tell Joy that I was the other half of the secret? Completely oblivious to my panic, Joy carried on, I'm serious this time. Last time was a false alarm, but this time, it's for real. I bolted, hands over my ears, and ran straight into Patrick's chest. He caught me gently, shielding my forehead so I wouldn't bump it. Before Joy could even react to the clearly suspicious embrace, Patrick narrowed his eyes. What were you whispering behind my back this time? He hadn't even begun interrogating properly yet, but Joy confessed instantly. I said, I think you're dating someone. Patrick shrugged. Yeah. I am. Joy's brain started short-circuiting, and before she could even recover, Patrick dropped the real bomb. It's Jennifer. Joy froze. Her CPU completely overheated. She pointed at us, stammering, you. And I was still buried in Patrick's arms, too scared to turn around and face the incoming storm. What do you mean, you? Patrick said coolly. Don't give Jennifer a hard time. Joy fell silent immediately. Oh, right. I almost forgot, this was Patrick we were talking about. The one everyone was afraid of.